Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are just plunging headlong into this incredible chronicle. We're talking high treason, necromantic mechanics, and the terrifying true cost of eternal power. We are looking at the catastrophic destruction of the Order of the Jinn, and right out of those ashes, the rise of the Immortal Syndicate.
And the source material we're working with here is, it's just incredibly volatile. You've got these two wildly different perspectives. On one hand, you have the searing, really meticulous personal notes of the sole survivor, a man named June Ortoy, the Veiled Master.
And on the other.
The cold, calculated philosophical manifestos from the Syndicate itself. So we're not just looking at myths. You have to treat this like a meticulously documented criminal and ideological record.
Exactly. So our mission today is, well, complex. We have to go beyond just the surface level battles and really analyze what's driving these characters.
Motivations.
The motivations, the mechanics of their true resurrection, and the chilling price that their promised utopia demands. We're dissecting a moment where the ancient code of life and death was just broken.
Okay, so let's get right into this. Because you're dealing with a world-changing betrayal that basically handed a necromancer the keys to true immortality, specifically the horns of Kulamak.
Yeah.
And you have to understand not just how this power works, but the mindset of the people who think they have the right to wield it forever, even if it means, sacrificing everyone around them.
Let's start right at ground zero then, the betrayal. The moment that just paved the way for everything else.
The fall of the Jinn.
Yeah. And June Ortoy's notes, they paint this remarkable picture of the Order. I mean, they operated with a level of secrecy it's almost unthinkable.
He estimates they'd been around for hundreds, maybe thousands of years.
Thousands of years. And completely unknown to any government, any major power on the continent.
That kind of secrecy, it's not just competence, is it? It's a deep, almost instinctual need for self-preservation. They knew what they were guarding.
They knew it was too dangerous. They were, in essence, a living vault filled with catastrophic potential.
And that vault was breached.
And utterly destroyed by one man, Janus Parandus. The sources are just. They're undeniably clear. Jin holds Janus completely responsible.
He calls him an imbecile in his notes.
He does. He's so dismissive. But that's a critical friction point, isn't it? He calls him an imbecile, but this supposed imbecile orchestrates the downfall of an ancient, powerful secret order.
So is that a genuine assessment? Or is Jin is he minimizing the threat out of pure personal fury? Is he refusing to give the traitor that much credit?
I think it has to be the latter. Because when June gets into the motive, he ties it back to something ancient, something, self-destructive.
The last vestiges of his ancestral glory.
Exactly. And you can't talk about Janus without digging into the historical contamination of that name, Parandus.
Precisely. This isn't just a simple act of greed. This becomes this inevitable historical catastrophe. Janus is a descendant of the vile bloodline of Emperor Chitus.
And for anyone listening who might not feel the weight of that name, we have to give the context.
Right. Chitus wasn't just some bad ruler. He was the emperor who put the thaumaturge Malachi in power. He's the one who set the whole cataclysm in motion, the event that ruined the entire continent centuries ago.
So this isn't just a family with a bad reputation. This is a bloodline that is intrinsically linked to world-ending hubris.
Yes. So Janus's motivation, it isn't just about modern ambition. It's this perverse need to reclaim a status that's rooted in destruction. He's fulfilling a family legacy of betrayal.
A historical repetition. And the context you get from Jun's notes just makes the betrayal so much more heartbreakingly personal.
Because Janus was an orphan.
Right. He didn't have the endless Parandus wealth. Joan notes that the coffers were dry. The name was still valuable, sure, but he was a fallen noble clinging to this toxic legacy.
And the world, for the most part, wisely kept him at arm's length.
Except for June's own order, his Akara. They took him in. They gave him shelter, membership. They knew the risk of his lineage, but they chose compassion.
And that just sets the stake for June. This is why it's so personal. Janus didn't just betray an organization. He betrayed the only people who ever offered him a home.
It's just a profound violation of trust. And the fallout, you can feel it in June's writing.
The certainty of his guilt.
Yeah, because chillingly, Janus is the only other survivor of the attack, which means he either took part or he just stood by and watched his benefactors get slaughtered.
And that certainty, it just fuels this intense, agonizing need for revenge. This is what defines June's character from this point on. He's not after abstract justice.
No, he needs blood. It's a psychological necessity for him to cope. He writes, "If there is but one silver lining, I may get to sink my blades into his flesh over and over and over again."
And if you just sit with that for a second, the weight of that trauma, this is a man whose entire moral compass has been shattered and rebuilt around this one single need for retribution.
And just like that, the personal stakes of betrayal merge with this new global threat.
The Immortal Syndicate.
June calls them a devious plan of necromancy, unrelenting and frighteningly efficient. He says they broke the ancient code of life and death.
Let's pause on that phrase. Frighteningly efficient. Efficiency in necromancy. That implies organization, resources, logistics. This isn't some back alley cult.
No, it suggests a massive infrastructure, something capable of processing life and death on a huge scale.
And that kind of efficiency, especially across a whole continent, it costs money. A lot of money.
Which leads us right to this piece of evidence from another source, the notes of an assassin named Verici. Verici confirms the Syndicate is not just a cluster of like-minded individuals. He says they have a very wealthy benefactor.
And that's critical. It immediately makes you ask, where did the seed money come from? If the resurrection power is their weapon, what was their foundation?
Is it someone who wants immortality for themselves and is just funding the R&D?
Or is it someone who's investing in the political stability that an immortal regime could promise? Someone with deep pockets and a very, very long-term vision.
The sources really do hint at some entrenched power structures. The sheer scale of it all suggests this was an investment long before it became an empire.
Okay, so let's shift to the core of the threat, the immortality itself.
Right, so June notes that Syndicate members have come back from the dead. In a world like Rayclast, with necromancy, that's not, it's not completely unheard of.
This is different.
This is fundamentally different. This is what earns them the name the Immortal Syndicate. June is explicit. They are no mindless zombies.
They return whole.
Whole. It's true resurrection. Their consciousness, memories, personalities, skills, it's all intact. And in a military or political structure, that is the ultimate game changer.
It completely eliminates the weaknesses of any mortal army. You lose morale, you lose institutional knowledge when a veteran dies, you lose everything.
But if you can eliminate death for your inner circle, you eliminate fear. And fear, as June points out, is the ultimate tool of control.
And this gets to Jin's core philosophical objection, doesn't it? It foreshadows the tyranny he sees coming. He just says it plainly. Immortality is dangerous, even in the hands of those with good intentions.
Yeah, the power itself corrupts, because it removes the most fundamental human constraint, accountability. If you never face a final consequence for your actions, what stops you from becoming a monster?
A mortal tyrant, at least, eventually dies. Their reign ends.
But an immortal tyranny, that's eternal suffering.
And the architect of this whole nightmare is Katerina. June knows her. He says she's a powerful necromancer whose talents were misdirected.
Misdirected has to be the understatement of the century for someone who just broke the fundamental laws of reality.
It is. But June, he recognizes the scale of her achievement. She learned to raise the dead back to true life. But he immediately adds the crucial counterpoint.
Such power does not come without a great price.
And there it is, the unspoken horror that's woven into all their efficiency.
We have to speculate a bit on the mechanics here, based on the hints. June is convinced she's paying that price in very inhumane ways.
Which suggests the resurrection isn't a one-and-done deal. It's not a single charge. It has to be sustained. There must be a constant fuel source.
Otherwise, they just revert to being dead.
Exactly. So if the horns of Kulamak, which we'll get to, allow the shifting of life energy freely, then the life they're granting their inner circle has to be drawn from somewhere, from others.
So the horror isn't just the initial killing, it's the need for a continuous, high-volume flow of sacrificial energy to keep the immortality engine running.
And that ties perfectly back to the very wealthy benefactor. You need someone who can fund the infrastructure to provide a limitless supply of victims to feed the machine.
It's a self-sustaining loop of tyranny and sacrifice. To keep the souls of their members from wasting away, they have to constantly siphon the life from new victims.
Which makes every single syndicate operation, even just a simple supply raid, a necessary part of their own survival.
And the mechanism, the artifact that allows this whole horrifying system to work, is the Horns of Kulamak. Jin confirms Katerina got her hands on them.
He calls them an artifact capable of shifting the very energies of life freely.
The horns are the linchpin. They're the technological enabler of this whole nightmare.
And Jun's notes say that even his own order, the Jinn, only had generational knowledge about them. Their understanding was incomplete.
They knew it was the ultimate tool of life and death. They knew it could siphon the very breath of life from any living thing.
But the origins, a total mystery even to them. Were they the remains of some ancient, powerful beast, a creation of the gods? They just didn't know.
And that ambiguity speaks volumes about the artifact's power. It also suggests that the Jinn's understanding was, dangerously incomplete. They knew it could steal life, but maybe they never grasped its potential for reconstituting it.
Which is exactly what Katarina figured out.
And this forces June to confront his order's greatest failure. All those centuries of secrecy meant nothing because they failed to properly hide or even understand this one weapon.
He says it himself. There is a reason my order hid the horns for so long, and we are seeing it play out before our very eyes.
Their fear was justified, but their failure is what armed their enemy and guaranteed their own destruction. It's the ultimate irony.
So with that power now in hand, Katarina's goals shift. It's not just about magic anymore, it's about empire.
June's analysis is just laser sharp on this. She wanted not just magical, but political power.
Because she understands that immortality is the ultimate political tool, the ultimate form of leverage. She's not thinking about next week's battle. She's planning for the next 500 years.
She sees herself as an immortal queen, just biding her time.
And the power dynamic within the Syndicate reflects that completely. June points out that her subordinates dare not cross her.
Why would they? Her power is absolute, and it's dual. She can give them eternal life.
But she can also take it away. Instantly, irrevocably. They don't just owe her their loyalty, they owe her their very existence.
So she solved the #1 problem of every mortal tyrant: betrayal. An internal coup is impossible because the punishment isn't just death. It's the loss of a promised eternity.
And this leads right to June's chilling warning, the one that defines the stakes for the whole continent. He sees her as a tyrant in the making.
And the longer we let her accumulate power, the harder it will be to depose her. Every single day they wait, the tyranny becomes more entrenched, and the eventual war becomes that much harder to win.
So to really understand why they think this horrifying system is not just necessary but good, you have to dive into their manifestos.
The Life Giver's Manifesto.
This is where they lay out their whole ideology. And it is a compelling, cold-hearted, and terrifyingly pragmatic case for eternal rule.
Okay, Manifesto 1. It sets the stage by comparing mortal life to water rolling across an ancient stone.
Right. The stone is society, history. A single life is just a drop of water. It makes a tiny, almost imperceptible change, but it's gone in an instant.
It's a powerful metaphor for futility, really. They argue that time and chaos, the wind, the rain, they shape the stone, but there's no grand design here. It's wasteful, inefficient.
And then they pose the core question of their entire philosophy. What if there was someone guiding the rain? Someone able to plan far past the fleeting lives that limit us?
Their goal isn't just survival. It's to impose a perfect, eternal structure on the chaos of the world.
But you have to challenge that, don't you? Are they trading mortal chaos, which can spark innovation, for immortal stagnation? Who decides what the perfect structure is?
And what happens when the Eternal Queen decides that perfection means freezing progress forever?
That's the tyranny right there in the design. And it connects directly to Manifesto 2, which is all about the loss of knowledge.
They ask this really insightful, almost poignant question. How much does society lose every time someone dies unexpectedly?
They say society builds bricks stacked atop bricks, but every death creates these huge, unnecessary gaps in the wall. A brilliant mind dies, and we have to wait for someone else to climb high enough once more to pick up where they left off.
And to them, this waste of intellectual capital is the greatest failure of our mortal existence.
So their immortality becomes the ultimate efficiency tool. They can bridge all those knowledge gaps and accelerate progress, well, forever.
They do admit there will be sacrifice in the present. We cannot all live forever in the flesh. But they justify the violence now by promising a future where knowledge comes freely.
It's the classic utilitarian argument, isn't it? We're sacrificing this generation to guarantee an infinitely advanced future for all the ones to come.
It's terrifying. And Manifesto 3, it leans into that. It justifies the secrecy and the conflict they have to engage in.
They see their detractors not as enemies, but as a necessary force.
Steel is not forged in cool air. It is forged in vicious heat. The heat is the opposition. It's us.
And even though they have to crawl through the mud, they see themselves as saviors, Ray-class saviors. It's classic totalitarian rhetoric, temporary suffering for a greater good that only they can see.
But the really cold, defining ideology comes in Manifesto 4. This is where they just dissect the wastefulness of death, specifically the soul.
The body, okay, it feeds the earth, it gets used. But the soul.
This is their ultimate justification for necromancy, and it's horrifyingly pragmatic. The soul drifts invisibly into the ether, never harnessed, never used, gone. What greater waste of life is there?
They literally see the soul as an untapped natural resource, wasted energy.
So they're building a utopia through thaumaturgy.
Yeah.
And they need two things: time, which the horns gave them, and energy,
Which the souls of the dead provide.
and their promise to those who die for their cause is so insidious they'll live on within us, be etched into the foundations of our utopia.
Your soul won't be wasted. It'll be harnessed to fuel the immortal machine. It's a cynical consolation prize, ensuring the death of the mortal always serves the life of the immortal.
And finally, Manifesto 5 connects us all back to politics. They use the failures of past empires, Sarn and Oriath, to justify their need for an eternal queen.
Sarn collapsed from internal fracturing. So many hands involved. Oriath failed because whenever a ruler died, the empire's direction was thrown into the wind.
So they position themselves as the ultimate solution to government instability. No more succession crises, no more chaos.
With an eternal queen, that problem is just gone. They promise stable, long-term, focused governance, free from the messy distractions of mortal politics.
And that brings us right back to June's chilling prediction about what this means for regular people.
The old Templar rulers were cruel, sure, but they were mortal. They could be overthrown. They would eventually die. There was a check on their power.
With the Syndicate, that check vanishes, and for a mortal, your choices become stark.
You either serve or you fuel their cycle of death and rebirth.
And all of this grandstanding, this horrifying logic, it all comes to a head in the final fight between June and Katarina.
The dialogue recorded from that moment, it just perfectly captures her hubris. She's so convinced she's won, she taunts him. Death will never come for an immortal.
She actually believes she's transcended.
But Jean just cuts right through it all. His response is so blunt, so defining. He reduces her entire grand vision to common crime.
You're no immortal, you're a thief, nothing more.
He just strips her of her self-appointed divinity. She's not a savior. She's just someone who stole a powerful artifact, and that's the first real psychological blow.
But the real climax, the real emotional core of it all, happens right after he defeats her.
When she's broken, desperate, and she tries one last time to use the horn's power as leverage.
She makes him the ultimate offer, an agonizing one. Stop, I can bring them back. I can bring June's entire order back.
The impossible temptation. She is offering to literally erase his trauma, to resurrect his entire Akara, the very people he's fighting to avenge.
But the price, of course, is letting her and her ideology survive. If he accepts, he legitimizes everything they've done.
For a horrible moment, you have to imagine he's faced with this choice. The very power the Syndicate offers, right there for him to use.
And his rejection is just. It's so total, so immediate, it's just two words.
Shut up.
It's not an argument. It's just a raw, visceral rejection. It's the sound of a man choosing his agonizing trauma and justice over the corrupting promise of resurrection. He rejects the power, and in doing so, he rejects her entire worldview.
And with that, the immediate crisis is over. Jin reflects then. It is done. Katarina is dead. The Syndicate is fractured. My Akara can at last find peace.
And that's the tangible consequence, isn't it? The leader is dead, the organization is broken, June has his vengeance, and Reclass has a moment to breathe.
But temporary is the key word there, because the ideology, the technology, the knowledge of how to use the horns, that doesn't just vanish because Katarina is gone.
Which brings us to this final, unsettling perspective from the trial master. He offers this deeply cynical counterpoint to June's sense of victory.
He says that despite being called the Order of the Jinn, they did not knowingly answer to a higher impulse.
What does that mean, a higher impulse?
The trial master sees their destruction not as a one-time tragedy, but as a pattern, a consequence of their own hubris. He says the Jinn have a habit of this. They always reform.
So they're not a stable institution, they're just the embodiment of a chaotic impulse, repeatedly gathering exceptional people and dangerous knowledge, only to be struck down again and again.
It's not bad luck in his view. It's an inherent force of nature that ensures powerful groups like the Jinn will always attract destruction. Jinn thinks he's rebuilding, but the trial master sees him as just another symptom of the cycle.
So Jin won his battle, he closed his loop of vengeance. But the trial master is suggesting the cycle is already restarting.
Exactly. He acknowledges the great blow from Janus, but then he says to Jin that he is a mere heartbeat later, stitching the threads back together all over again.
Wow. So the whole war against this immortal tyranny, It might not be a single conflict at all. It might just be an unending cycle.
June may have won a definitive victory, but by rebuilding his order, he might just be setting the stage for the next inevitable collapse.
So after all that, what does this mean for you listening to this chronicle? We've just analyzed a crime against life itself, haven't we?
One fueled by ancient ambition and, it seems, limitless resources. The Syndicate pose this terrifying moral dilemma: achieve societal permanence, eliminate the wastefulness of death.
Only through merciless, immortal tyranny and absolute control.
And their philosophy, laid out in those manifestos, it poses this powerful, disturbing question about the limits of immortal life. They argue stability requires immortality. That progress demands eternal leadership.
And you have to ask yourself, is the cost of enduring collective knowledge always cold-hearted sacrifice?
Yeah.
And if that sacrifice leads to a guaranteed utopia, is it worth the price?
June, obviously, wounded and betrayed, chose temporary chaos. He chose the natural, mortal order over that enforced eternal design.
But the story doesn't end with peace. It ends with the trial master's cynical observation that the Order of the Jinn seems destined to just repeat this cycle, gathering, acquiring knowledge, and then facing catastrophic destruction.
And that's the final thought we want to leave you with, this chaotic impulse that the Syndicate tried to tame and that the trial master says will destroy the Jinn again.
Does it ensure that every victory against this kind of eternal tyranny is just a prelude to the next fight? That every time a new group rises to protect the balance, they're just setting themselves up to be the next to fall, ready for the cycle to begin once more?
That is the endless tension in this whole chronicle, and something for you to mull over.